So picture this. You walk into a grocery store, you head straight to the back to grab like a gallon of milk, right?
Oh, yeah. Best part of the store on a hot day.
Exactly. You pull open that heavy glass door and you just feel that blast of cold air hit your face. And I mean, you never think twice about it.
Right, it's just cold air.
It's always been cold air. But right now, the invisible chemistry that is actually keeping that milk cold is undergoing, well, honestly, the most aggressive trillion-dollar overhaul we've seen in the last 30 years.
It really is massive, and it's happening totally behind the scenes.
Totally invisible. And it's a shift affecting every grocery store, every gas station, and ultimately, and this is why you listening right now really need to care about this, the air conditioner sitting outside your very own house right now.
Yeah, because what happens at a massive commercial scale, it inevitably bleeds right into our personal lives. I mean, we just take for granted that our homes are kept perfectly comfortable by these complex systems.
Oh, 100%.
But the supply chains and the federal regulations governing those exact systems, they've entirely transformed.
They really have. So today we are pulling from this really fascinating transcript. It's from an HVAC industry show called Cool Talk.
A great resource, by the way.
Yeah, really insightful. They featured an interview with Dave Hartzell, who is a true veteran of the trade. I think he has like 45 years of experience in the HVAC business, based out of Kingfisher, Oklahoma.
That's a lifetime in this industry. He's seen everything.
Literally everything. And what he lays out is happening right under our noses. So, okay, let's unpack this. What exactly is this invisible revolution going on in our backyards?
Well, to set the context, the interview focuses pretty heavily on a commercial manufacturer named Hussmann.
Hussmann, okay.
And they are just an absolute titan in the commercial refrigeration space. Like, if you've ever bought a cold soda at a gas station or, a frozen pizza, you have absolutely interacted with their equipment.
They're everywhere.
Everywhere. And Hussmann just announced that they are rolling out an entirely new class of refrigerants across, well, their entire product line.
Wow, the whole line.
The whole line. But the crucial takeaway for you listening to this right now is that the implications are universal. I mean, if you go out and buy a brand new air conditioning unit for your home today, the chemistry running through its veins will be completely different.
And way more regulated. Right?
Exactly. Far more heavily regulated than it was just like couple of years ago.
Because supermarkets are kind of the commercial canary in the coal mine here.
Yeah.
They are the ultimate proving ground for the technology that eventually makes its way into our residential homes.
That's exactly how the pipeline works.
Right. So Hussmann is transitioning everything, the display cases, the massive walk-in freezers, even those super complex refrigeration racks hidden in the back rooms. They're all moving to something called A2L refrigerants.
Yeah, A2L. And because a giant like Hussmann is making this sweeping move, it sends a really definitive signal to the rest of the world.
Which is what exactly?
That A2L is no longer some, hypothetical future concept just being debated in engineering white papers. The supply chain has fully mobilized. It is the immediate operational standard right now.
Wow. So the identical refrigerants being pumped into those massive commercial units are currently being installed in residential homes by, like, all the big brands, Carrier, Trane, Lennox.
All of them.
It's wild. Imagine waking up tomorrow, driving to the gas station, putting the nozzle in your car, and realizing the chemical makeup of gasoline at every single pump in the country changed overnight.
That is a perfect way to put it.
Right, because the pump looks exactly the same, your car drives exactly the same, but the chemistry is entirely different, and nobody even bothered to send you a memo.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that analogy highlights exactly how commercial scale quietly dictates residential availability.
How so?
Well, Hussmann's adoption means that all the specialized components, the massive vats of this new refrigerant, and critically, the trained technicians are just flooding the open market.
So the infrastructure is already there.
Exactly. They're building the infrastructure that makes this new technology the default setting for your home.
Yeah.
You don't get a memo because the industry they just upgrade the world around you while you weren't looking.
That is slightly terrifying, but also amazing. But because this new technology is now creeping into the unit, sitting right outside, your bedroom window, we really need to address a word that usually makes homeowners very, very nervous.
I know exactly what word you're going to say.
Yeah. We need to decode what A2L actually means and confront the feel of the word flammable.
Yes. Let's break down that classification. Because just hearing the terminology causes a visceral reaction for most people.
It really does. So what does A2L stand for?
Okay, so the A stands for low toxicity.
Okay, that's good. We like low toxicity.
Right. The 2 indicates it is mildly flammable, and the L stands for lower flammability.
See, that sounds like a complete oxymoron to me.
What's it?
Mildly flammable, lower flammability. The bottom line is it can catch fire.
Technically, yes.
And that is a stark contrast to what we are used to having in our homes. Because the old stuff, the A1 class refrigerants like R22 and the more recent R410A, those were 100% non-flammable.
They were completely inert when it came to combustion, yes. But we really need to look at the actual physics of an A2L refrigerant.
Okay, let's hear the physics.
In order for ignition to actually occur, you need an incredibly specific, almost impossible set of circumstances. First, you need a substantial rapid leak.
Not just a pinhole.
Exactly, a massive leak.
Well,
Second, that leak has to concentrate in a tiny, totally enclosed space without any airflow whatsoever.
okay.
And third, you need an ignition source that reaches over 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit.
Wait, 1,000 degrees. Okay, I have to play the role of this. But Dave has spent 44 of those years working with A1s, the totally non-flammable stuff. So how does his past experience fixing non-flammable systems guarantee our future safety with a totally new, heavily regulated chemical that, actually burns?
That is the exact skepticism every homeowner should have. It's a great point. But Dave's experience isn't about him handling A2Ls for 4 decades. It's about his deep understanding of how residential systems actually fail in the real world.
Okay, so how do they fail?
Well, in half a century of fixing blown compressors, electrical shorts, and massive copper pipe blowouts, the mechanical failures he sees simply do not create that perfect storm I mentioned earlier.
Because you need the leak, the tight space, and the massive heat.
Exactly. Consider your outdoor unit. If a massive leak occurs out there, the refrigerant just immediately dissipates into the open atmosphere.
Right, it just blows away on the breeze. There's no tiny enclosed space for it to concentrate.
Precisely. And the chemical bonds of an A2L are also incredibly stable. They don't just flash ignite from like a tiny static spark.
So shuffling my feet on the carpet isn't going to blow up my AC.
No, absolutely not. They require massive, sustained thermal energy, like a direct, high-powered blowtorch, to break the molecular bonds apart and actually sustain a flame.
Okay, well, that definitely covers the outdoor unit. But what about the indoor units? Because, a lot of that equipment is shoved into a hot, dusty attic or some tight hallway closet where the air basically doesn't move at all.
And the engineers anticipated that exact vulnerability. That was their biggest hurdle.
So what did they do?
Because of strict new building codes, the new indoor units, and by the way, this includes those Hussmann commercial units in the grocery stores, they now feature advanced built-in leak detection systems.
Like a smoke detector for refrigerant.
Basically, yeah. But these aren't simple pressure gauges. They are active sensors, literally sniffing the air inside the cabinet.
Wow.
If the sensor detects a concentration of refrigerant approaching even a fraction of its flammability limit, the system just takes over.
What does it do?
It instantly shuts down the compressor to stop the flow of refrigerant completely, and it immediately kicks on the indoor blower fan.
Oh, to dilute the gas.
Exactly.
It circulates the air through the whole house so the chemical never actually reaches that critical concentration level.
It forces aggressive airflow to ensure the gas remains safely diluted. The word flammable just triggers our survival instincts, right?
Yeah, sure. It sounds super scary.
But the practical, heavily engineered reality is that these systems are aggressively monitoring their own environment to prevent any chance of ignition.
Which is great, but it begs a pretty obvious question. If the old A1 refrigerants were completely non-flammable and they worked perfectly fine to keep our houses cold without requiring, built-in computer sniffers and automatic shutdowns, what forced this global pivot to A2L?
Yeah, why fix what isn't broken?
Exactly. Why abandon a perfectly safe working system?
Because environmentally, the old system was doing massive, massive damage. The driving force behind this entire transition is a metric called global warming potential, or GWP.
GWP. Okay, we hear about carbon footprints all the time in the news, but let's actually explain how a refrigerant compares to something we all know, like car exhaust.
Good idea.
Yeah.
So GWP measures how much heat a specific gas traps in the atmosphere compared to carbon dioxide over a specific time period.
Okay.
Carbon dioxide is the baseline, right? So it has a GWP of exactly 1.
Makes sense.
Well, the old residential standard, that non-flammable refrigerant known as R410A, has a GWP of over 2,000.
Wait, over 2,000? So if, one single pound of that R410AA leaks out of your air conditioner, it is trapping 2,000 times more heat in our atmosphere than a pound of pure carbon dioxide.
That is exactly what it means. It acts like a highly effective mirror up in the upper atmosphere.
Just absorbing the infrared radiation, trying to bounce off the Earth and sending it right back down to us.
Precisely. And that massive multiplier effect is why the new A2L alternatives were developed. They drastically reduce that heat-trapping capability.
How much lower are we talking?
Well, a new A2L refrigerant called R32 has a GWP of around 675. And another one called R454B is under 500.
Wow, that's a huge drop from 2000.
It's a massive environmental improvement.
And the HVAC industry, I mean, they didn't just wake up one morning and decide to be environmentally friendly. This was forced by the Kigali Amendment, right? This massive international agreement alongside some really aggressive enforcement from the EPA.
Oh, absolutely. They were pushed into this.
And the regulations already kicked in. On January 1st, 2025, manufacturers were drastically restricted from producing the old R4 and 10A.
A very tight timeline.
Yeah, and there is a near-total phase-out for new equipment slated for 2028. This isn't some slow 30-year transition. It is a hard deadline.
And the speed of that deadline has created a genuine format war among the manufacturers.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's incredibly reminiscent of the old VHS versus Betamax rivalry, but instead of videotapes, it's about the actual chemicals cooling our homes.
I love that comparison. So how is the industry splitting up right now?
Well, the Asian and European manufacturers, these massive global brands like Daikin and Gree, they vastly prefer R32.
The one with the 675 GWP.
Exactly. Because it is a single component refrigerant. It's pure, it's relatively simple to manufacture, and honestly, they've actually been using it safely overseas for years.
Okay, so what about the American brand?
And Lennox are putting basically all their chips on R454B.
And why is that? Because R454B is a blend, right?
Yes, exactly.
It's essentially a chemical cocktail that's designed to mimic the pressure and the physical characteristics of the old R410A.
You nailed it.
It's like mixing different octanes of fuel so the car engine doesn't have to be completely redesigned from scratch.
That's a great analogy. It saves the American companies from having to totally re-engineer the physical copper piping and the internal pressures of their existing equipment assembly lines.
So they basically engineered a bridge.
Exactly. By blending the chemicals, they achieve the low GWP required by the EPA. While still maintaining the internal physics their engineers are already perfectly used to working with.
So what does this all mean? If I'm the homeowner and I'm being forced into this environmental upgrade just to lower the global warming potential, am I going to sacrifice my comfort?
That is the big question everyone has.
Right, because when it's 95 degrees outside, is my house going to struggle to cool down because the new chemical is somehow, like, weaker?
What's fascinating here is that cooling performance isn't compromised in the slightest.
Oh, really?
Not at all. In fact, R32 is actually slightly more efficient at transferring heat than the old refrigerants were.
That's a relief.
And Dave emphasizes a really profound point in his interview. He says the true metric of a good, reliable air conditioning system isn't the fluid sloshing around inside the copper pipes.
What is it then?
It is the quality of the physical installation.
Ah, the human element.
Exactly. A system cools brilliantly if it's properly sized for the square footage of the home and the ductwork is sealed perfectly. I mean, you can have the most advanced, environmentally friendly refrigerant in the world, but if the technician installed a unit that is too small for your house, you are going to be sweating.
Which brings up a huge point about those technicians. If every single one of those new indoor units now requires an active optical sensor to sniff the air and a computer board programmed to kill the compressor, well, that hardware isn't free.
No, it certainly isn't.
And the guys installing this must be starting from scratch with a mildly flammable gas. Who actually pays for that massive learning curve?
The consumer does. But the legal imperative here is incredibly strict, and it directly impacts you. Because in order to handle these new A2L refrigerants legally, technicians must possess a brand new EPA 608 certification.
Okay, so they can't just use their old license.
No. They have to undergo specific federal training on leak detection mechanics, ignition scenarios, and safe handling procedures specifically for mildly flammable gases.
And here's where it gets really interesting, right? Because you can't just hire your neighbor's cousin to fix your AC on a Saturday afternoon anymore.
Absolutely not.
If someone shows up in an unmarked van to service your new A2L system and he isn't EPA certified for it, he is literally breaking federal law.
Yes. And more importantly, he might not actually know how to handle the new sensors and the chemicals safely.
Which is terrifying. I
Yeah.
mean, Dave, who again has been turning wrenches for 45 years, had to go back to the classroom to get his new certification.
Right. If a guy with 45 years of experience has to go back to school, your neighbor definitely isn't qualified.
You absolutely must ask your contractors to physically show you their A2L certification. But let's talk numbers.
Yes, we have to look at the cost implications of all this new technology. Because with mandatory sensors and mandatory retraining, the price of keeping your house cold is inevitably going to shift.
Yeah, A2L systems absolutely cost a bit more upfront, and the chemical itself isn't necessarily what's driving the price up right now.
No, it's the hardware.
Right, it's that mandated leak detection technology we talk about. Manufacturers have to source, build, and install those advanced sensors into every single unit rolling off the assembly line right now.
But the source text points out there are financial offsets available to soften that blow, though the landscape of, free money has shifted significantly.
Yeah, let's use Dave's home state of Oklahoma as our prime example here because he breaks down the current financial reality perfectly for his client.
It's a great case study.
Because a lot of homeowners might be banking on those massive federal tax credits they have been hearing about, the 25C and 25D credits.
Oh yeah, people love those.
But according to the source material, those federal credits expired at the end of December 2025. That federal money is entirely gone. The game is now completely about navigating local utility rebates.
Which is actually a good thing in some ways. Local utility companies have a massive vested interest in you installing highly efficient equipment because it drastically reduces the strain on their power grids during those peak summer hours.
Makes sense.
And those local rebates can be incredibly lucrative if you have a contractor who actually understands how to do the paperwork.
Right, and Dave laid out some highly specific numbers for Oklahoma that showed just how much cash is still on the table. Like if your electric provider is OG&E, they are offering up to $1,500 per qualifying HVAC unit.
That's a huge chunk of change.
It is. And if you are doing a massive whole home system with multiple units, they cap that rebate at $3,000.
And for homeowners looking at geothermal systems, OG&E offers $1,000 per ton of cooling capacity.
Wow. But the payouts vary wildly depending on who actually sends you your electric bill, don't they?
They really do. Like Seek Energy, another provider in the state, they offer a massive geothermal rebate of $2,000 per ton, and they will pay out up to an astonishing $24,000.
That is insane.
Meanwhile, OEC offers between $400 and $700 per ton, depending on the efficiency of the system you choose.
It is an absolute maze for a normal person to navigate. I wouldn't even know where to start.
Most people don't.
And that is exactly why Dave uses a very transparent pricing model to help people figure this out without feeling like they are just getting taken for a ride.
Transparency is everything right now.
Exactly. He offers completely free estimates for new systems. He comes out, measures the heat load of the house, researches your specific local utility rebates, and gives you the final real number.
No hidden fees.
Right. And for regular service calls, he charges a $99 dispatch fee just to get the truck to your house. Then a $111 diagnostic fee, which he actually credits back toward your repair if you approve the work within 14 days.
That's a really fair policy.
Yeah, and then a $229 annual tune-up to keep the system running efficiently. When the technology is changing this fast, that level of financial transparency is worth its weight in gold.
It really is. And, synthesizing all of this financial and technological data, it is crucial to reassure anyone listening who might be low-key panicking about the air conditioner currently humming outside their window.
Yeah, let's calm everybody down.
If you have an older system running on the old R410A refrigerant, it is perfectly legal to operate. It is perfectly legal to have it serviced and recharged. The EPA is not going to show up at your door and fine you for having an old air conditioner.
Okay, phew. You don't have to rip a perfectly working system out of your yard today.
You don't. But you do need to understand that it is officially legacy technology. The transition has happened.
Right, the deadline passed.
Exactly. The supply of the old chemical is heavily restricted now, which means the price to recharge an old system is eventually going to skyrocket.
Supply and demand.
Right. The advice Dave gives is incredibly practical. You have to be proactive. If your system is aging like in that 12 to 15-year range, and it is starting to nickel and dime you with minor repairs, you need to start planning the replacement now.
Don't wait for it to die on the hottest day of the year.
Exactly. Do not wait for it to suffer a catastrophic breakdown. Replace it in the spring.
Yes, Get it done before that brutal 100+ degree July heat hits. Because when it is 105 degrees outside, guys like Dave have a massive waiting list.
They're booked solid.
And you are going to be miserable sitting in a sweltering house waiting weeks for an entirely new technological system to be sourced and installed.
The global supply chain has shifted. The federal regulations have shifted. The smart homeowner shifts their planning timeline to match the new reality rather than being caught totally off guard by an emergency breakdown.
That is incredible advice. So let's bring this all together. What have we ultimately learned on this deep dive today? The A2L refrigerant shift isn't some distant, environmental goal. It is already here.
It's in your backyard right now.
It is highly regulated by the EPA. It is environmentally necessary to drastically cut our global warming potential. And yes, the chemistry is technically classified as mildly flammable.
But that flammability is heavily mitigated by advanced physics, mandatory leak detection sensors, and automated dilution protocols.
It represents a massive triumph of engineering adapting to a strict environmental necessity. And it happened almost entirely behind the scenes of our daily lives.
It's kind of beautiful when you think about it.
It is. And hey, for our listeners in the Kingfisher, Oklahoma area, you can actually reach out to Dave Hartzell directly. The guy clearly knows his stuff, and he's done the work to stay ahead of all these crazy regulations.
He's the guy you want doing the install.
For sure. You can grab one of those free estimates at hartzellsheetair.com or call him at 405-375-4822. And no matter where you live, make sure you get a pro who actually holds that new EPA 608 certification.
Absolutely essential.
Yeah.
And, as we wrap up our analysis of these sources, consider the nature of the mandate itself. We are solving a chemical problem, lowering the global warming potential of the gas by mandating the mass manufacturing of millions of complex electronic sensors, microchips, and circuit boards for every single new air conditioner on the entire planet.
Wait, yeah, that's a lot of electronics.
It poses a fascinating question. Are we genuinely saving the environment, or are we simply trading an invisible chemical footprint for a massive, highly visible mountain of future electronic waste?
Oh, wow. That is a wild thought to end on. You fix one environmental issue by accidentally mass-producing another.
Something to mull over.
Definitely. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. Keep questioning the invisible systems around you, and as always, stay curious.